Hey everyone, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And welcome back to our coverage of the Netflix streaming show Glow.
Gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
We are up to the second half of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
We are, for anyone who's has not been binging this and perhaps forgot, we're not doing episode by episode recaps for this one. We're just doing kind of chunk analysis.
Yes.
So this one,
big picture issues.
Big picture issues. So the kind of major big picture issues in terms of this chunk of time, there's kind of two major global things that they talk about, and then a couple ones within the lives of our own favorite characters. So globally, they touch on the AIDS crisis that is tumbling out of control at this point in American history and global history. Mm-hmm. And they also touch on immigration policies, which is very near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yes.
As former immigrants to the UK and currently married to an American immigrant. So anyway, and then there's some process with our characters as well. So real quick, we're gonna start with the AIDS one because that's particularly I think handled particularly well.
Yeah, and for me, like so what happens in this chunk? In the episode, and I don't know which one it is, but whatever, where Bash and Debbie are doing the Whisper campaign to try and, garner sponsors and to get somebody else to buy Glow, he gets the phone call that Florian has died. And again, it's one of the things the show does really, really well. He says he died. What did he die of? And the doctor goes, technically, pneumonia, which is the code word that we all know now, post-AIDS crisis, means that because they didn't know what it was, he did technically die of pneumonia, but that's not what was killing his immune system. So anyway,
and it's also possible at that point that, because they said he was in Sacramento, and that it's possible that they just, I'm not entirely sure what year we're in.
No, so sometime vaguely in the 80s.
Sometime in the 80s. So the doctors knew that AIDS was happening, knew he died of AIDS, but coroners also weren't putting that on death certificates.
On death certificates, So we get a bit of the AIDS panic as well in these couple of episodes. And we both feel like Bash is struggling with his own sexuality at this stage. And
we think that's the story that Chris Lowell's face is telling.
We're not sure because they haven't told us. But a couple indicators seem to show us that might be where this is going. So then we get him completely having his whole house bleached and cleaned down, and some really, really, really negative stereotypes towards people who had AIDS, which was all very, very common. So again, the show is situated in the 80s, and it's not trying to be a show with 2019 sensibilities made in the 1980s. No, especially if he's struggling with his sexuality, but even if he isn't, we didn't know anything about AIDS. We didn't know how it was transmitted, and it was really, really scary.
Yeah, and
all of that comes across with Chris Lowell
really, really well, and he does a great job. And the season ends, by the way, with him panic marrying Rhonda, which that leads into Rhonda's. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. That leads into Rhonda's story in this particular filming live. Sorry, forgot to hit the old mute button on the phone here at ARHQ. She is the immigration thing. So she is here. We find out in these episodes that Rhonda has been essentially living illegally in the United States. She has no social security card. She's been off the grid and staying. And the girls talk her into, and this is very common. I love Americans so much. We don't understand our own immigration system
at all.
So they're like, oh, it'll be fine. Just go down and explain at the consulate. And the minute she did that, we both looked at each other. We're like, oh, child's getting deported.
Yeah. Because when you're off the grid, you're off the grid. And they don't know you're in the country illegally. And so she went down and told them, I'm in the country illegally. And they said, cool, you have to leave.
Yeah. So then it this was very common in the 80s and still happens now. They decided that she was going to get married to one of her obsessive fans named Cupcake, as part of who is the kid from the Sandlot.
Played by, the kid from the Sandlot.
The kid from the Sandlot.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Killing me, Smalls. And that's going to be the finale, the series finale, potentially, of the show within a show. Yes. Is that Danica is going to get married to Cupcake. Sure.
Great idea.
Great idea. But it was very touched on very quickly, like why potentially she didn't want to go back to Britain.
Yeah.
Also, this reality that there's a lot of undocumented persons living in America for a whole lot of reasons. And it is easy to exist in the United States without documentation to a point.
To a certain point, yeah.
And then the minute you cross that threshold, it becomes impossible. And they rally around her. And like, I get a little bit weird about storylines like this because I was like, oh my God. You are why everything is so hard now. Like you are why my life is full of so much paperwork. But this was very, very common. I mean, we have the 90 Day Fiancé show that now is still a phenomenon.
Right.
So she gets, so they in the first time where I kind of cocked an eyebrow at the show, because this felt very convenient, but I'm still glad that they touched on it because I'd been wondering why she was in the US with that accent.
Yeah, and how she was able to keep a work visa for being a low-wage actress on a cable television show that was airing at 2 a.m.
2 a.m. So that's the global stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of our character development, this is really, these 5 episodes, we have forward motion with Ruthie.
Yes, with our Ruth.
With our Ruth, both with Sam and with Russell.
And with Debbie.
And with Debbie.
Yeah. So we have the incident in episode 5 and 6 where apparently Debbie snorts too much cocaine and snaps a bone in Ruth's leg, which is a real thing that happened on the show. But it forces a confrontation between Ruth and Debbie in the hospital, which again was another one of those scenes that's very clearly written by a woman.
Yeah.
And who knows the complexity of female relationships, friendships, and all the little things you never talk about, but that continue to form the way you interact with another person. So that felt very, very authentic. But it also seemed to clear the air. Yeah. And kind of start them over, hit the reset button, sort of, on their friendship. Like, it can't ever be undone what happened. But they find a way to work through it, which was cool. And then, the Ruth and Sam thing.
So I was on the record as not loving Sam at the beginning, and I just want to say, in the first 5 episodes, he wasn't the greatest.
No.
But he has...
The first 5 of this episode.
Was not the greatest.
Yeah, no.
But here's what I have really begun to articulate about myself. One of the most attractive features of any human, to me, is radical authenticity.
Yes, and honesty.
If you are yourself, I love it. Like, I'm tired of games. And Sam is the most himself character on that show.
100%.
And it is so refreshing. Yeah. Like, every single time I think he's going to, like, be polite, he's honest.
Yeah.
And, like, there are times you want politeness in your life, but the character of Sam is not capable of being both truthful and polite.
No.
And I'm really glad he chooses truthful every single time.
And we see he moves back towards, not being such a dick, especially towards Ruth. And they have a couple of moments where he said, I was never angry. I never hated you. I wasn't angry with you. I'm just an insecure old man.
Yep.
And like, we appreciate the honesty and like calling his BS for what it is.
Yep.
He knows himself very well, which we talk a lot about at Abbey Research, the importance of knowing who you are and how to work with others. And he's horrible at it a lot of the time, but he knows who he is. So there's some value in that. And we're moving Sam and Ruth towards potentially some possible romance.
And like, I usually am not cool with it, but for some reason I don't love the power dynamics usually. It makes me squicky a lot.
Not one of her favorite ships, but maybe this time.
I don't do age difference a whole lot in my romantic pairings, but like, there's something about these two.
Yeah,
and they're both cloying neediness that comes out in different ways that I think their toxicity might actually become a neutral in their relationship.
Like, balance each other out.
It's like, I think they're toxic for everybody else in their lives. Except possibly each other.
Yeah.
So we've got our romance novel reading eyes on the Ruth and Sam front.
And we are at the end of the season after the wedding finale surprise, in which Rhonda ends up not really marrying Bash, but they can sort it out with paperwork.
Yeah, when he's in an Elvis costume.
Yeah, we find out that the network owns the rights to the television show they thought they could sell to other networks. And so they can't take the characters anywhere else on television, but then they get an offer from a lovely friend to take it as a floor show in Vegas. And that is where we end season 2, with our ladies moving to Vegas and potentially on to greater shenanigans. further weirdness and
definitely
lovely relationships. But everything, I feel like all our concerns about the first few episodes of this season were solved. We're back on track.
Loving the show.
It was a short-term sophomore slump, and they put everything back on the rails. Well, I don't know how many more metaphors I have, but I think
it's okay. You can stop now. Yeah. So we'll see you guys in Vegas when we pick you back up with the 3rd season of Glow.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I remain Dr. Kristen.
I am always Dr. Erin.
We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.